Hi, I'm Jessica Besson, Mercer County Extension Agent for Horticulture, and today I'm at the University of Kentucky's Horticulture Research Farm in front of a table of a lot of different irrigation parts. So we've had a lot of questions about getting farmers set up with a basic irrigation system, and we're here today to show you some of those parts that go into it. Keep in mind that every system is going to be different, whether you're using them for vegetable production or maybe you're growing with strawberries or have some other system going on. So if you have any further questions about what system that you specifically need, contact your local county extension agent. All right, so we're going to start with where you would start out with the beginning of a hydrant or a hose. So these first pieces that we have over here are the big ones for large commercial growers. This is a backflow preventer, so big heavy duty one that for larger commercial growers. And we also have a check valve here. So this check valve, as water goes in, it pushes the valve open. As water stops, it closes, so you don't have any backflow going into your main lines. Right. So next we have some ball valves, which you would connect to your line next, and they have a quarter turn on them. This one's really tough to turn, to close and open the valves of your lines. And they come in all different sizes depending on what system you're using. So as we mentioned at the beginning, depending on the size of your system, the different sizes of the parts will change. One thing you want to keep in mind as you are working on your irrigation is at the beginning you want to make sure you're ordering all the right size parts. So you want to be consistent. So if you're ordering a 1.5 inch valve, you want to make sure to consistently order those same parts to make sure you have the right sizes. Another thing to think about with the valves, you want to use them in strategic places where you might want to turn your water on and off. So if you have multiple different lines coming from a hydrant, you won't have to go and turn your water off at that main hydrant. You can just go and turn it off at the valve. So coming from your backflow preventer, whichever size you have, if it's a large one or if it's a small one, you're going to need a lead line that gets you out to your field. So you're going to use something like lay flat, like what we have right here, a hose, and you might have some elbows to help connect along the way. All right, so if you are using lay flat out in your field, you're going to want to use some of these pipe clamps or hose clamps, however you've heard them called before, to help connect that hose to your other irrigation equipment. So coming from our lead line, we're going to now connect to our header line. And our header line is that line that's going to be right out in front of your field where you're eventually going to hook up all your irrigation that's going to feed your plants, their water. And coming from that, we want to make sure and have a pressure reducer. And this again, depending on your system, you may need one and you may not need one. If you have a very large field and you're running off a garden hose, you may not need a pressure reducer on there, and that also varies on just the pressure that your water lines have as well. And this is also a place where you might want to put a valve there as well. Just like our lead lines where we've used lay flat, our header lines we can use lay flat as well. These also come in a variety of different sizes. Another material that we can use is orchard tubing, which is usually black in color and a harder plastic, and that's what's often used by smaller growers if you're new to it, and it can be used in a smaller system. So depending on what type of material you're using for your headlines, you're going to use a variety of different fittings. So we have things like quick connects here, we have elbows, we have other fittings, and we have ones, and they're sold as male and females. So we have a male fitting here and a female for a quick connect. We also have things that'll be barbed, and we also have threaded. And the best way to have the right pieces, and from personal experience I can say, is to make sure you have an irrigation plan before you end up ordering something or going out to purchase. Write it down on paper so you can have your plan there with you when you go to purchase your items. So if you have threaded fittings, sometimes they're hard to get them screwed together. Getting a little bit of this PVC thread tape that you wrap around the ends of your threaded fittings, they'll help them go on to the other fittings easier and will also help them seal tighter. So now at the point we have our lead line that's connected to your main water source that goes into your header line, where we have our pressure reducers, our valves, other fittings there. And now we're finally at the point where we're going to connect to our irrigation lines, the T-tape lines that are going to be most of the time under plastic mulch, or you might have them up on bare ground as well. So they come in a variety of different sizes. We have here a 6, an 8, and a 12-inch, and that's the spacing of the slits that are in the T-tape, and that allows the amount of water to come out. So if you have the closer they are, the more water you're going to come out around certain plants, versus if it's a further spaced one, the water will be further spaced apart out in the field. So once we have our trickle irrigation laid out in the field and we have our header line, which we have our lay flat, you're going to end up taking a punch, a handy punch, and they sell these, and they have a couple of different kinds of these where you can just punch into it, or there's handle squeezed ones that you can use. And you're going to punch a hole where your T-tape is coming out. You want your T-tape to connect to. And you're going to use one of these, there are a lot of different names for this little item right here: a barb valve, emitter, a connector, but that is what you're going to end up putting in your lay flat. After you've punched a hole in with your trusty punch, you're going to put the emitter in, tighten it up, and then this other end of it, you're going to take your T-tape and put it in and tighten as well. And this is another way you can control the amount of water that's coming into your field. So as we mentioned earlier, we have other valves up along by the header line that we can turn on and off. Well, you can turn those on, and then you can go to your rows individually. Say you have one row that's ended up getting too much water or doesn't need water, and you can turn those on and off at the main line. If you farm at all or garden, you know everything doesn't always go perfect. So in that case, especially with irrigation, if we have a little critter that accidentally decides it wants to like nibble on your irrigation to get a drink, or if you're staking your tomatoes and you accidentally stake through the T-tape, which been there before, you're going to have an explosion of water. Well, maybe not an exact explosion, but you're going to have a leak. And so you want to get a couple of these couplers that you can go back and cut your T-tape that's out in the field, and they work just like those the emitters we showed, where you can attach it on one side and you have your other cut in, attach the other, and tighten it up to tighten it up so then you can repair your T-tape within the field. And for both the header line that we've talked about a bunch, and for the T-tape lines, we need to make sure to cap the ends, because if we don't do that, your water's just going to run out and go everywhere, and you're not going to be able to irrigate anything. So you want to make sure that you have, like we have a box cutter here or a pocket knife handy. You just simply take your T-tape at the end or the header line, cut yourself a little piece, and then you're going to fold the line back on itself. So fold it over once or twice, maybe fold it together, and then you're going to slip this little piece right back over the end of your line, and that should cap it off where you won't have any water leak out. You may have a little water that leaks out of it, but it will do a good job to contain the water. And you do the exact same thing with this lay flat for your header line. So when it comes to finding this stuff, sometimes it can be a little tricky. So you're going to need to get in contact with a horticulture supplier for has irrigation parts. If you visit the Center for Crop Diversification website, they have an excellent resource that shows where all of our horticulture suppliers are in the state. So as you continue to work and build your own irrigation systems at home, you will also gain a lot of experience in trying to figure out what works right for you. And someone that has a lot of experience with these irrigation systems and setting them up is Jay Tucker, who is the head irrigation guy at the UK Horticulture Research Farm.
As Jessica mentioned, my name is Jay Tucker. I am the lead irrigation guy at the University of Kentucky Horticulture Research Farm. I'm going to show you a few tips that I have that makes it a little bit easier as you're going out in the field. What I like to do before I do any irrigation is make a list. Make a map, make a sketch, whatever you like, just to show you what all you need, and you don't have to make 5-6 trips back to the house or the barn or anything like that. Just make a list, a little part from here to start to finish. That'll make it a lot easier for you. Another tip I have, like Jessica said, you have to use these hose clamps, pipe clamps, whatever you call it, on the lay flat. Well, if you can use one, it should be fine, but I like to use two. And two just secures you that you won't have any leaks. You'll be more, like, spread it out a little bit so it's just tight. I like to use this here, use it by hand, That way you know how much pressure you're getting on it. You're not using a drill or anything. You can break it. This way you just secure that it's tight. Another tip, the last one I have, is when punching the line, a lot of people do it with water in the line. I like to punch it dry. That way I'm not getting soaked, and it's just easier for me. I just squeeze it here, punch it, and pop the emitter in, and we're done. Everybody has a different way to do it, so try it both ways, see which way you like it better. If it's a hot day, you may like to get wet, and may like to get better like that. With the quick connects, there's multiple different kinds. There's the poly, there's aluminum. Everybody has their own preference. The polys are a little bit easier to connect, but they can get ran over and break easily. The aluminums will last a little longer. They're more durable. Not as easy to connect, but they do last longer. The thing I'll say is the gaskets that all these have in them can fall out, can get stuck to the male pieces, fall out. Just so you want to check every year, every time you use them, make sure they're in them. If they're not in them, you'll have a big leak, you'll have a mess, you don't know where it's from. It's from that. One thing I want to tell you, you're going to get wet doing irrigation. It's just a matter of anything can happen. You can get a hole here, you can bust something here, you're going to get wet, you're going to get muddy. So don't wear your church clothes.